Hello everyone, how you doing? Welcome back to Skye and Evan in the morning, and we are
Fi
here.
Finally, one episode filmed in the morning as well, actually proper, so
Oh yeah, we
that's
we
my
haven't done
one
that before. The idea partly was because we usually do these in the morning, in Evan's morning, but uh,
my schedule changed, but it's changing back, so hopefully these will be more of a regular thing.
yeah. Uh, Welcome back everyone, and today we're going to be talking about Roadhouse and the
Yes,
Fall
indeed.
Guy. Uh, Interesting.
Interesting combinations
Yeah.
that I when you told me that, I was like, I just watched the movie last night, and I still am not sure if there's, like, a connection you wanted to draw, but either way, they're fresh movies, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, both action movies from this year with famous stars in the main
Yeah.
role with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Gosling, and that was kind of the connection I made in my mind. Especially, it's just when I was watching The Fall Guy, I was like, "This is so much better than the fucking stupid third act of Roadhouse." But we'll get to that. Um, but yeah, in terms of these movies. Evan, what do you think of the original 1989 Roadhouse?
I think there's something there. Like Patrick Swayze does give a very good performance, and like there's an interesting idea about like how businesses are run, and there's almost like an honor system that he has that's interesting. But like my biggest thing with that movie is that the villains are ridiculous. I'm never a fan of movies where there's like this corporate overlord that just wants to like buy an entire town and kill anybody who gets in his way. Like, the Lethal Weapon movies have villains like that, and I always find it kind of boring. Like, Lethal Weapon works off its main characters rather than its villains, but it gets kinda ridiculous, and it's just not that interesting of a story outside of Patrick Swayze and, like, some of the plot elements they go for.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Patrick Swayze. A hot take.
Really?
I don't think
Wow.
he's charismatic like at all. It was it was kind of hard see.
Why?
I don't know, but
Really?
yeah, I genuinely just kept seeing him. I was like, this film needs like Tom Cruise, and it's partly what I thought the new one did better. Jake Gyllenhaal is so much more charismatic than Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, I'll admit, like, that is one of the better parts of that movie. It's almost funny how, like, laid back he is, like, because Jake Gyllenhaal's known for being a little bit more of a quote unquote "serious actor," like, he gets super into his roles, like, it was funny. I mean, he got built for the role, but it was funny to just see his attitude as a character. He's very laid back and relaxed,
Yeah. Uh,
which is weird because they try to tie that into his stupid, like, killing someone in the UFC or
yeah, that
whatever.
we'll get to
I'm
that.
so conflicted and dark.
Yeah. But that was kind of the thing that I thought, even though I was not a big fan of the UFC thing, it at least is more consistent than whatever they did with Dalton in the original movie, where they're like, "Oh my God, he killed someone one time," and it's supposed to be like this huge, like, "No way, he killed a person," and then he kills a bunch of people in this movie and doesn't regret
Yeah,
it. It's just like, okay, well, do you want me to care that he killed people or
but they
not?
were the bad guys. That's different. They were
Yeah.
evil.
So
Yeah.
stupid. Like the way they try to make Dalton's character in the original is just like they kind of it feels like they gave up halfway through. The new one, at least they had a consistent idea, even if the idea wasn't great. um,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
was
and honestly as well, like, the romance, like, the girl who plays, Ratcatcher 2 is the, love interest
yeah,
instead of the
Daniela
new one. I
Melchior. I love her. She's great.
I think I preferred them to I don't even remember the original, like, love interest.
Oh, she's very boring. She's
Yeah.
also there's something weird. This is gonna be something that it's just probably gonna be me that notices it because I am gay. But she looks and acts and dresses like a lesbian in that first film. It is so odd seeing her act as if she's straight with like this macho guy supposed to be her boyfriend. It is so odd. I was really like could not buy it. She if she were dating a girl in that movie, I would have bought it, but not a man. And so yeah.
Fascinating. That's interesting critique. I don't remember her enough, like, that she was that bland for me at the very
Oh,
least,
she was
so
very bland, regardless of her looking gay. Uh, but yeah, I was the the original's weird. There's some cool. It's probably like has some better ideas than the new one, but it is executed so boring in every way that I was very unimpressed. And like the pacing is so bad. The new one at least like has a really fun pacing. I think the first 40 minutes of the new one are just phenomenal. I love like those first 40 minutes. I just get through them like really fast. 'Cause, it feels like it's really fast because it's just really really good and well done. But
yeah, the new Roadhouse doesn't really waste your time, and I mean, it's kinda like how a lot of '80s movies were. There was, like, more dead air, like because movies were cheaper back then, and more moments for the characters, but it
yeah.
is I would say the newest movie is a lot more exciting at the very least, but the old one, it can drag, and the 3rd act gets insane,
Yeah.
my biggest thing is I don't even know what message it's really going for, what it, like, is trying to say with its story because they just fucking kill everybody at the end. Like there's a couple of movies that do that where it just ends on this huge shootout or like fight scene and everyone just dies. And I'm like, what am I supposed to take away from that? Like, what's the point
Well,
of the
the
movie?
original, they kind of try to be like, you see, the town, they stuck together and they beat the evil guy. And they're all like, oh yeah, I didn't see anything. Did you see anything? It was like the town sticking together. It was like a Spider-Man moment where the town stands up for itself. But like that felt like super out of nowhere after just seeing Dalton single-handedly kill everyone in that fucking house.
You're just led to believe that like the town believes in him enough. But I'm like, would they have done that if they'd seen everything? Of like, it's weird.
It's
You're just
especially weird
supposed to like
because
just put a
like
guard down.
the love interest was just like, oh yeah, like oh she was like super taken aback when he killed the guy who was gonna kill him, like the main henchman. It's supposed to be like this. He's going down a dark path, but he never like stops going down that dark path. He just continues going down that,
No,
and then she just ends up being together with him at the end. Like it doesn't change anything.
that was one of the weirdest things of the new Roadhouse that I didn't get. In the first movie, at the very least, they tried to, like, have some sort of a moral, like, high ground that the character goes on, or they tried to make it so it felt like he was redeeming himself. I didn't get that sense at all with the Jake Gyllenhaal Dalton.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't really change much at all. He just kinda stays the same, and I I can't tell you, like, how he grows different. He's about the same through and through. He doesn't kill Conor McGregor, but,
If he stayed in the
what
town, then it would have been an arc because the entire point of him opening up and like to people when he wasn't letting himself do that throughout the entire movie. Like when he said, "Oh, I don't know, didn't know this was a date," and he just tries to leave and everything. Um, like that could
was
have,
kind of a cool moment. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," you
yeah,
know?
yeah, but like the fact he just actually does leave at the end, it's just like, what's the point? Like he didn't actually change at all. He just came, a bunch of weird shit happened, and then he left.
Yeah, I do not know what they were going for in the new Roadhouse, and let me tell you something. I mentioned that I was, like, frustrated with the villain in the new one. The villains in the original one, the villains in the new one, like, I could not get over the introduction with the villain where he's on, like, a boat
And
and
he's
he's having
getting,
his face
eh,
razor shaved, and he gets pissed at both the barber and the boat driver for, like and you're
I
like,
thought
"Dude,
that scene
you're
was so
straight
stupid.
razoring
Like,
on the."
why, do you introduce your villain like
Well,
this? Like he's just a
it's supposed to
moron.
make him look petulant. You're like, he's so rich and entitled that he shaves and he
Yeah,
gets
but there are
mad at
ways to
other
show
I'm like,
that someone is entitled without making them stupid.
yeah, it's cartoonish, and it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good way to describe both Roadhouse movies that get very cartoony and
Oh yeah.
fancy, like fantasy-esque. So
I mean, yeah, there's that fucking scene in the original where he gets a fucking uh a monster truck to drive through the car dealership, like just out of nowhere. He's just like, this is what's happening now. Like, okay, I guess we can do this.
just do it and just move on. It's like, I own the town. I could do anything I want. It's like,
Yeah, like chill, bro.
damn.
But yeah, so original Roadhouse, not great. New Roadhouse, also not great. um,
Where would you put them? I still think the first Roadhouse is just that little bit better. It has more of an semblance of a story. I feel like there's a little bit more to chew on. Like I'd argue that I had maybe a little more fun in the new Roadhouse just because of how bonkers the third act gets, but I would say the originals got it by a little bit.
I prefer, in terms of like enjoyment, I prefer the new one by a large margin. Um, Especially because the first 40 minutes I genuinely think are great. Um, but in
Pretty
terms of
entertaining. I'm sure it's all don't waste your time. So
yeah, in terms of story, I just the third act of the new one annoys me because it gets super bonkers and it's just like not at all what the film was selling you on for the last like
what
hour and a half.
the boat crash into the bar was so fucking funny
It
when they like
was.
he like jumps off in
And he fucking
that.
survives the villain.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like like stabbing each other with splitters of wood and shit like that. It's like it's it's funny how brutal that fight gets, and it's like, hey man, don't kill him. It's like, holy shit. Talk about like the stakes being that level before. I'm like,
Yeah. I also
it's weird.
hate the Irish guy Knox in the new one. He's so cartoonishly cringe. He feels like a, I don't know, man, like a Fast and Furious character. It's like I did not like him at all. Um, so I don't know. I think the old one's probably like a more well-rounded, consistently well-made movie, but I think the new one is much more enjoyable. I don't know.
Yeah.
They both have many issues. I just I find it hard to say which one is like for sure better because they're both not great. Um, but with that, there's also the Fall Guy. What did you think of the Fall Guy?
Well, I didn't like it, actually.
What?
Yeah, this might get on the spicier end, but I noticed you give it a 9 on Letterbox. This was not it for me. I don't know, mixed on a lot of elements. I liked a lot of it, but it was the script, and it was like it was house, especially in the third act. I think that was what you kind of wanted to compare to Roadhouse. We could have some stuff to talk about there, but I was kind of middle on this one. It's probably my least favorite of the David Leitch movies I've seen.
Interesting. I genuinely love the Fall Guy. I've seen it twice and I enjoyed it more even on the second watch. Uh, I'm interested to hear what your criticisms are though.
Uh, like I said, it's the story. So there was a part in this movie where I was sitting there and I was like, would this have been better as maybe a short film? Because I just don't feel like there's much meat on the bones. This really is just like a guy fucks up on a stunt, and then like most of what they show is kind of off screen, unfortunately. They're just like, hey, he was afraid of getting back into stunt work, and he couldn't tell the girl he loved like that he loved her, and they keep going back to that. They're like they just have a new action scene, and it's like, hey, why didn't you say anything to me? It's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know, and I didn't know how to say how much I love, and they do that over and over again, and it's like they're cute, and I love Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in this. They make the movie. They're a really good combo, but like I just don't think there's much of a story in this movie. It just is it's
I mean,
mostly
the
run
story is
on the
very
stunts
simple
and
to be
on
fair, yeah.
yeah. It's mostly them and their charisma, which like all the scenes between them are great, but the story itself doesn't really feel like it connects to them. That's the thing. Like there's like 30 minutes where there's no plot of the movie where he's just on the set and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, a movie star's missing. It's like, what? Like what do you mean missing? How? What? And then that's the story, but that doesn't have anything to do with like their characters, and they don't really connect until after like he quote unquote dies. So I just don't feel like the main plot that they're going for really connects with what they're doing with the lead two characters.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah,
Go ahead.
I just don't really see that as like a problem. It's like telling two stories, like the the main plot and the main character conflict are two separate things. Like the main plot is him trying to find the actor. I forgot the name of the actor. Fucking Eric Taylor Johnson.
Uh,
I don't remember the actor in the movie.
yeah. But by the way, that was so funny when the reveal. I was wondering who was going to be the replacement star because I didn't know a lot of the cast in this. And then when I saw there was Aaron Taylor Johnson, I was like, oh man, that actually makes a lot of sense. They look pretty similar.
Yeah.
So it was, and it's funny too because Ryan Gosling definitely has more star power than Aaron Taylor
Oh
Johnson. It's
yeah.
like it's funny to see him like playing full into the like cliched movie star.
It was yeah. And but I think it's just like it's just two separate stories. Like he can have a main character conflict within himself that he needs to solve, as well as having just the main plot conflict, which is trying to find the actor. I don't think they really
Well,
need to
my
connect, and when they do, you just kind of like what it does for characters just show how much those two actually do care about each other, despite the fact that they clearly were very hurt with each other before. And I would say it's definitely not a lot in terms of character in this movie, but I don't think the characters are like what the movie's really going
well,
for. I think it's just like a very simple like love story that is surrounded by a really really well made action movie.
well, exactly. Like it's a love story, like with an action movie attached almost, because that's my frustration is that Emily Blunt doesn't really have anything to do with the story until the third act after they're trying to like get him off for murder. It she's just calling him. That's the thing. Like the split screen when he's going on the when before he finds the dead body, she just randomly calls him and just talks about something random like that she's thinking about with the movies. They have the same type of conversation. It's like we'll get back to the plot. Like that was my biggest frustration. I wish that she had more to do with the story before like the ending happens because for the most part like it's just him doing his own thing and then you cut back to them every now and again. It just I don't feel like it connects as well as some of the other like they do a good job instead of Bullet Train, for instance, connecting like the different assassins and like how they're after the same thing and Ladybug himself. And like I just think those characters in general were better. Like David Leitch is surprisingly good in that. Like I think he usually prioritizes character and this movie does too with the love interest at least.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I can understand why you'd be frustrated. I just don't really personally find it a problem the way it was done. I think it's fine. Um,
I feel you.
but I can understand, especially because Emily Blunt's great in this movie. I wanted to see her be more involved with
She
the
is.
story.
It's one of my favorite performances from her, honestly. Like, I love, like, how much investment she has in the movie. Like, there's that I think it's a one or yeah, it is, on the beach, when they reintroduce her, like, after she's a
Yeah.
director, and you just see she interacts with, like, 10 people in, like, 2 minutes, and, like, you just see her attitude with all of it, and it's cool seeing her be this active because sometimes she can play like I mean, Oppenheimer, for instance, you know, she plays Oppenheimer's wife, and it's like she fills the role you would think playing Oppenheimer's wife, and it's like, in this, she has a lot more command, she's a lot more at the forefront of the story.
Oh yeah. Um, sorry, what were you gonna say?
If you wanna talk about, specific scenes, by the way, the first scene where they're blowing up I by the way, Metal Storm is so fucking funny, it's like Mad Max meets Dune, and
Dune, yeah.
the music when they're like,
I was just like,
"Ah!"
wait,
Like,
are
that's
they
so
actually gonna
different.
play the Dune thing? And then it changes like the last note instead of going down, it goes up. It's like, oh, okay.
That that was the hardest that I laughed in the movie, I think, it was so funny, such a good parody, and, like, they do a good job, like, separating that, like, making a funny, like, fake, like, hall age at Comic-Con movies.
Yeah.
Alright.
And I do find it
But
kind of hilarious how much it's just like generic, very cringe like action movie, and how much it means to Emily Blunt's character. Like you're just like, oh yeah, I need to finish this movie and this like super complex love story to figure out the third act, and then you see the movie is just like really funny. It's just like whole age Comic Con movie, like very much what you expect from like an action movie like
showy,
that.
like, Marvel movie-esque,
Yeah,
like, big budget, I mean, they even say it's over budget in the movie itself, so,
yeah.
yeah. But I love this scene I did find it funny because I'm like, dude, after the 3rd act, the AD would shut her ass down, but, like, I love the repeated stunt and how she's clearly talking about, like, their own relationship and,
Yeah,
like, making a show of it in front of the crew, like, that was really funny, and
yeah,
again, like, some really good material between the 2 of them.
yeah. I love that moment too, and it's hilarious when the guys he asks like, oh, sometimes you just can't, you don't know what to say, and then you spend so long thinking about what to say that you realize that you already fucked up. Uh, and then the guy is like, Does anyone here understand that?" And the guy's just like, "Yeah, I went through the same thing when I fell in love with my wife's sister."
They just take the mic. Oh god.
uh,
That was funny.
yeah,
That was definitely one of my favorite scenes of the movie. It
yeah.
was it was a funny, self-aware. I was frustrated, like, how self-referential this movie
You
was.
mentioned
Like,
it, yeah.
yeah, there's like, for one, they call attention so many times to like the fact that it's a movie. Like they use different movie quotes that are fairly obvious in my opinion, most of them anyway. And it's like, the whole like she's trying to figure out the 3rd act. It's like, don't you see, like it's going to connect in the 3rd act, and they're going to get back together. The question of like if the main's like, it's like, I get it. It's just they kept doing it, and it's like I know I'm watching a movie. Like, let me have a little suspension of disbelief.
Well, it didn't bother me personally, but I can understand that. I didn't even think about the third act thing because, like, I mean, what you said makes perfect sense. It's just I think it's like fine. It's a movie about making a movie, so it is gonna be a bit more self-referential than other like stuff like this,
Yeah.
and especially as
Well,
a
and this
movie that's basically just like a love letter to stunt work. I feel like it's fine to have this like it be as the story itself be more self-referential than something that's like exploring like the nature of film or something like that. It's like just it is an action movie an action movie about making an action movie. So it is
well, and
very
this is
yeah.
Well, and this is definitely better than a lot of self-referential movies that we see nowadays. Like, they definitely know what they're going for. Like, that was what I realized part of the way through this. I'm like, this really is like the love story's there for the emotional connection, but it's like, other than that, the rest of the movie is basically like the like selling point stunt of like a lot of action movies. They have like 10 of them.
Yeah.
Like all of the stunts are like the craziest stunt you could imagine, and
And
it's
they're all fucking
and
practical, done with actual stuff work. It's
yeah.
phenomenal. I love
Well,
genuinely one of my favorite parts of the movie is during
the
the
end credits.
credits. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
seeing the
exactly.
behind the
Well
scenes and be like, holy shit, they actually did this.
well, that was one of the things I was like, I almost feel like a documentary about making this movie would be better than the movie itself, because I was like, I I just don't think the story they're telling is a good catalyst for, like, an interesting movie about stunts themselves. Like, I
Uh-huh.
mean, you obviously need emotional connection, but I just like, I don't think they found good excuses to string together the action. Like, for instance, the garbage truck that, like, scrape they, like, drive that thing through like, miles of, like, Sydney's
Yeah, I
streets in,
thought that
like,
was
broad daylight, and
hilarious
the
because
cops don't
I
stop
thought it
them.
was hilarious that the cops never show up.
Yeah.
I was just like, but actually, it's part of what I think is just like the movie, like making fun of itself in a way, just be like, yeah, this is absurd, but we know it's absurd, which is part of how I
Well,
wanted to tie this movie back to Roadhouse. I think the Fall Guy establishes really well what type of absurd it is from the get-go, and it remains that level of absurd throughout the entire movie. And it knows it's stupid, but like in a good way because it never exceeds its stupidity or tries to tone down the stupidity of what's going on. Like they have the stuff with the fucking unicorn with the drugs. Like there's a lot of
that
really
oh,
stupid
man.
jokes that I love.
I was wondering if it wouldn't take place, like, over, like, in order, like, on one night, and then, like, the 3rd act would be in the morning. I was hoping that he was gonna be tripping balls through and
Throughout the
through, and
movie.
eventually, in, like, the end, he would stop seeing unicorns, but
That would have been
that was
hilarious.
the funniest thing, that he just sees unicorns.
It's great
And
when
that is
he's
a
talking.
highlight, the fight with the, like, light effects when he's, like, hitting people with
Oh yeah,
fireballs.
that was really good. The animation and everything that looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
As well as just like the fight choreography was really really good. I that was one of my favorite action scenes in the movie as well. Him fighting with the while being high as high as fuck. But
And he's in, like, a neon green,
yeah,
like, jacket and, like, a oh, man, how am I
a
beanie.
beanie, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But
Hilarious fight.
yeah, like this movie, it knows it's stupid and absurd from the start, and it never stops being that. Like it keeps its tone consistent. The thing that annoyed me
Yeah.
about Roadhouse is like it has this tone, and it seems to be like this toned down, like grounded story about this like security the what they call it in the original the cooler. Yes, cooler is the original
Bouncer.
job title. Yeah. Oh yeah, bouncer as well, but they call it in the original cooler, like the official title.
Oh,
Yeah,
I forgot that. Interesting.
yeah. Um, I assume because he cools
Well,
fights and everything, and then it just like absolutely loses itself in the third act. I really, really
yeah.
am not a fan of the third act of Roadhouse. Like it just gets way too absurd by for a film that was trying to be this very grounded story about this like this man who committed something awful ages ago and he's trying to redeem himself, though we don't actually focus on that a lot, but regardless.
Yeah, they don't it's almost like they make that up part of the way through the
Yeah.
movie to make it more interesting, and it doesn't feel like it was something that they set up from the beginning, but yeah. In terms of consistency, a funny thing I was thinking about when I was watching this movie is, like, because David Leitch was one of the directors of the original John Wick, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I find it funny that he and the original director, like, I don't know how to say the guy's last name, but Chad something, he's still doing the John Wick movies, and what I find funny is when I watched John Wick 4, I was like, "I feel like this is what he wanted to do in the first place because it's just a full fantasy." People are fucking using the lapels of their, like, tuxedos to block gunshots, like, they literally that's a consistent thing. They're just like, "Hey, I'm gonna put up my jacket, and I'm gonna stop bullets, and then I'm gonna shoot." I'm like, "Oh, so this is just a fantasy." I was like, "Good. Like, cool. We're doing fantasy modern movie, and none of this matters." And I feel like David Leitch is also like that, but I prefer him more grounded. I prefer Atomic Blonde, and I feel like he's going more into the like the fantasy realm, especially with how bonkers the third act of this movie gets. Like it I don't know. I found it really hard. Like, you wanna talk about cartoon characters, like the producer, it's like, what the hell? She full out has a gun just for no reason in the third act, and, like, they're like I mean, I love the ending with them, like, hanging on the helicopter and all that, but the villains themselves, like, I found it hard to take them seriously considering how cartoony they were.
I don't think they're meant to be taken seriously. uh
Well, yeah, I
I
mean,
think that's kind
it's
of
just
the difference. Like, I think in Roadhouse is supposed to be like this super, like, oh, it's serious. He's gonna destroy the town because he destroyed the bar because he wants to have this town for himself and make sell for this and that. It's just like this actor is so stupid that he managed to kill his stunt man by accident, and now they're trying to cover it up. And there's this like extremely cartoonishly evil idea of how to do it, of pinning on his own stuntman who he also tried to kill. It's just like I found that like it taking itself way less seriously at that point. It just be like,
yeah. Yeah, I think the tone works pretty well. By the way, I don't know about you, something I was a little surprised of. I realized this in the when he's texting her and he puts like like he corrects himself and he says ducking
ducking
autocorrect.
autocorrects.
It's
Yeah.
like that was a funny joke, and I remember just sitting there. I was like, wait a minute, is this movie PG-13? And I was like, it is. And
Oh
I was like,
yeah, I didn't even realize that. Yeah.
I almost feel like this movie would have been better served R. David Leitch's movies are usually R, and I feel like you could have had the characters feel like a little more unfettered with like the dialogue, and you could have the action you could have had them be kills rather than just like knocking everybody out. Like I love that the third act is just like beating everybody up and like using the like lines that like move like stuntmans around to like fling them all over the place. It's just it feels hilariously sanitized for, like, a movie that could have been full rated R, and
I mean, it could
I
have,
don't
but I
know.
feel like it would have been really weird to have them actually kill any of the bad guys in this movie.
Well, yeah, of course, like, the 3rd act would have I mean, well, I think you could have had, like, something like I mean, it could have even been like Ladybug and, Bullet Train where he doesn't wanna kill people, but, like, they die anyway. I mean, there's that guy that gets, like during the chase with the truck, there's the guy that gets, like,
Yeah.
hit by, like, a post or
Yeah,
something.
they
I'm like,
show that
"Dude,
he's
you're
alive.
dead."
Well, that was part of what I thought was just the movie having fun, being like, look, I know that he would have died if this was like real life, but this is a movie. He's okay, okay? I felt like that was him just the director just telling the audience, look, I know he should be dead, but he's not, okay? This is a movie where the main guy doesn't kill anyone. I don't know, I kind of like when things have that kind of awareness to be like, look, I know what we're doing is absurd, but you gotta like meet us halfway, I guess.
Yeah, it's a fair thing. I feel like certain movies demonstrate a little more restraint or, like, ground themselves more. Like I said, because I don't even like John Wick 4 all that much, but I prefer it to John Wick 3 because I'm like, they're not in two minds. They're not, like, trying to be like, "This is the real world," and this movie definitely feels within that realm of, like, John Wick 4 where it's like this it seems fantasy-esque,
Oh yeah.
I with a lot of the things that they introduce,
Oh
but
yeah, that's what I'm saying about what I like about it. It's just very consistently knows like this shit we're doing is absurd. It's the same as Bullet Train. It's part of why I loved about Bullet Train because that movie as well is about like luck in general, and you have the characters be either insanely lucky or insanely unlucky, like on a whim, and that's kind of what's fun about it. It's just like, oh, the most
yeah.
absurd thing ever happens, and how's the character gonna deal with it? And that's what's fun, like about that movie.
Yeah,
And it's just
that
like,
random sorry, go on.
no, you can go.
Well, what I was gonna say is that, like, that sense of randomness, I think I mentioned it before, but, like, I prefer the randomness in that movie because it's all, like, assassins that are, like, after the same thing, so it adds up a little bit more for things to just be kind of, like, randomly put together and that, everyone just after Ladybug eventually, and that's why, like, they also just kill off those characters, like, what is his name? Like, the wolf or something that, like, they, like, have this whole backstory that they lay out, and he just gets stabbed in the heart and dies. It's
Yeah.
like I I find the randomness, like, works a little better given the plot of the movie. In this movie, it feels more like the action sequences just kind of happen to the characters. The randomness
Well,
feels
the
more
thing is that the main character, fuck, I forgot his name, Ryan Gosling. Uh,
Colt. I don't know a lot of the characters' names in in this movie, unfortunately. I know him, Colt.
yeah, Colt.
What
Colt.
and the dog, I know that the dog is Jean-Claude.
Jean-Claude, yes. Atake.
That's
Great. But I kind of like, but that's kind of the thing with the film that Colt is thrown into this insane situation and where he ends up in these like absurd scenarios, like him being like fighting someone on the back of a garbage truck, like barely through Sydney, like. And the action scenes kind of happen to the characters because that's what happens in the story. Like he's just thrown into this insane scenario because he's being tricked into it, and he keeps getting himself out of it because he's awesome. Instead of him just being
yeah.
like, oh, I planned for all this, because he never actually has a plan until the end. Until the end, he's just like going through the motions, and then he
Well, they
finally
do a really
takes.
good job with that, like, just making it funny and making it seem like I mean, like, if there's anyone to get through this movie, it's a stuntman, and
Yeah,
it works well for him. It doesn't feel like he just gets lucky and gets out of situations, like, he always has to fight his way through or, like, stunt his way through.
yeah.
It's just the level real talk, like, this movie apparently had, like, a $120 million budget. I almost wish they'd just, like, cut back on but then again, if you cut back on the action sequences, then all you have is Emily Blunt and them, like, talking, like,
The action sequences are what make the movie.
they are, there were a couple that I almost felt like didn't do too much. Like, well, I can't I don't know. It's
Well,
weird. I like a lot of this movie, I really do, and I seriously, Emily Blunt, David Leitch, like, they're it's the writing, it's the script. I don't I feel like the filmmaking is better than the writing. There's a couple of movies that are like that, but it's like it almost reminds me of like Jordan Peele, I where what you're seeing on screen and the actors themselves is so great, but just if the story could just be that little bit polished, you'd have something like amazing. I don't know.
I feel like Jordan Peele needs more than a little polish in his movies, but
Yeah, maybe a co-writer and or different writer.
yeah, maybe he just directs. He has an eye for visuals. Um, but I I don't know. I can kind of understand your perspective. It just I feel like when you go into a movie, you kind of go into like the film is selling you, like this is what the story is about, this is what the movie is about, and you kind of have to like meet halfway and accept it. It's not really a movie about a story. It's a movie about action, a
Yeah.
bunch of action scenes, collection of action
Well,
scenes, and we're gonna make excuses for them to happen. Not really like
well, well, again, like that's the thing. Like that's clearly why David Leitch made this movie, and I don't know if he like commissioned a writer or something, or if this was a screenplay that he just selected himself. But I'm like, I almost feel like there are better stories to make that kind of a movie. Like, what if you like made a mockumentary about making like an insane like movie? Like if the entire movie just followed the making of Metal Storm and like you showed all the insanity and like most of it like took place on the set or something like that. Like I that was my biggest thing, especially in the first scene with Emily Blunt and Colt where they're talking using the megaphones. I was just like, I almost feel like a different story is like it would almost be better served with a different story rather than like what they're going for. But
mhm,
yeah, it's the whole wishing for a different movie thing. It's not
yeah.
the greatest criticism. But by the way, I don't know if you know this. They acknowledged it in the end credits. They said world record when for the beach stunt, and I realized.
Yeah.
Do you know what held the world record before?
It was the that James Bond movie, right? It was
Casino Royale, yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
I
I think they actually did that on accident.
it
Like, they
was, yeah.
filmed it in one take, and it just did the flip, and they're like, "Damn," and it was 7 times. It's like, "Holy shit."
Yeah.
And I guess just no movie went for it. They must have, like, had that in mind, though. They're like, "We're gonna fucking be there.
Yeah.
We're gonna get
Well,
8."
yeah, that's what was great because making Metal Storm, Emily Blunt was like, "Oh my god, that's a world record. It's gonna be the Hall 8 shot." And then when in seeing the fucking behind the scenes in the end credits, you're like, "Oh my god, that's a world record!" So like they actually, it's kind of
Yeah.
funny that they had the same
Well
reaction in the movie and in real life. I kind of like that.
Well, and it's funny too because the rigs themselves, I don't know if like those like they had a real helicopter and everything they show like was not CGI'd in. So like they must have had cameras around the same cameras that they were using. And it's just I always love that when like there's a film set in a movie and you just think like there's a film set like
Around this film
filming the
set.
fake film set. It's like the definition of meta. It's just
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I because you were talking about the story as well, but part of what I really liked about the Fall Guy is like it feels like a very genuine movie. Like it's super
Yes, that
cheesy with like Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling's characters, like and their relationship, but cheesy in a very honest way. Like, oh, we know that the movie's cheesy. These characters are being super like affectionate in a way that you wouldn't see in real life, but it's kind of what's fun about it to see these characters be super cute together.
Well, and seriously, all their dialogue, like they felt like a real couple. Like it
Yeah,
was it was nice of them to have them be like estranged and like, so many movies try to make estranged couples and it's like they just fight the entire time or it's like, the whole like snapping cliche of like, something's unsaid and then finally like they say the unsaid thing. It's like, "Wow, you broke my," like it there's nothing like that in this movie.
yeah.
They
I
just
mean,
it just
everything
feels
is
like they
said
don't.
within like the first day of the meeting. Like, there's obviously the scene on the movie set where she blows him up a few times, and then there's the conversation in the car where he listens to Taylor Swift, which is also hilarious. Him crying at Taylor Swift.
Dude, that line was so funny when she lays out, like, the entirety of the script and, like, relates it to their life, and he says, "I'll hit the rock better." I
Yeah.
that
Or
was that was
all
such
right,
a
I'm ready
funny
to hit the
delivery.
rock better. Yeah, it's great. Uh but then there's obviously the conversation in the phone where it is about them, but it's also
Yeah.
not. It's about the movie she's writing. Um
I have that up now. I love that she's wearing the prop, like,
the
alien
alien
hand
hand.
during that.
It
I love
makes
it.
that scene so funny because she keeps using it as if it's a regular hand, just like scratching
Scratching
her
face.
chin and it's so funny.
Yeah, that was really clever. I was actually disappointed. I thought they would reincorporate, like she says, she like has a different idea and she doesn't incorporate it into the movie, but they showed in the trailer. I was wondering if they do something clever, maybe like show them trying to get to the same place and connect. Like, I mean, it's funny. It's like just talking about the practicality of using split screen because it is like not a lot of movies do it nowadays, even though it can be a useful tool. So
Uh,
it's just yeah,
yeah,
they're
I did
great.
like that split screen scene as well. Really well choreographed too. The both actors like doing
Yeah,
everything at the
like
same
they
time.
got the same yeah, like putting the feet up and putting them down and like
Yeah,
how they sit where they are, like that. It was really clever, especially how they're in different locations, but they've got similar lighting conditions because of the time of day. Like I that was a highlight. All their scenes were highlights in the
yeah,
movie. There were some of my favorite parts, even though like that was my thing, is just like how they connected. Like it I feel like it's them and then it just cuts to action. It's like if that's for you, then good. And realistically, it works well enough because they make the movie.
yeah. I mean that's fair enough if it doesn't. If it's just the type of thing where like you wanted more from the. I think it just works for me. I think it's just a movie that was made for me. I love this type of movie. It is so honest as well as just being so funny and meta in a way that I like instead of being meta in a way that's like Deadpool. I know it's funny to say that when David Leitch made Deadpool 2, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, I think Deadpool 2 is the best. I haven't seen the 3rd one yet, but man, like I really like Deadpool 2 and I think it works surprisingly well, even
I
though it is
love
like
Deadpool 2 too. I Deadpool is weird. It's just the first example that came to mind for me when I was thinking of a
insincere movies.
yeah, uh, but it's insincere and meta and self-referential. But this film feels very sincere, despite being very self-referential. Which is also kind of
Yes.
what I
Yeah.
liked about Bullet Train. It's just like it is this absurd, very funny uh not self-referential, even like self-critical in a way. A Bullet Train is because it just points out, it just keeps pointing out how absurd and how unlikely everything that happens in that movie is. Like all the insanely lucky and
Yeah.
unlucky things that
It
happen.
gets
But
it gets quasi Monty Python. That's what
yeah,
makes the 3rd act work like a train, like, everyone survives, like, the 3rd
yeah,
act and, like, the full train crash. It's like it's just supposed to be funny considering the character, like, is, like, lucky/unlucky
unlucky. Yeah.
depending on how you look at things, so
Yeah, and that's what's hilarious because he says in the beginning of the movie, "Oh, I'm so unlucky," and you know, even the title card in that movie is about like a casino slots, like being like, "Oh
yeah.
yeah, lucky." Uh,
Oh, by the way, I loved the opening and closing credits of this movie, like, it was super clever, like, that they used, like, the formatting, like, of a screenplay, the shot list, the call
yeah,
sheet, like, anyone who anyone who's worked on any kind of film set, like, all the film isms are in this movie, it's
yeah,
really funny. I love that they knock Colt for not reading the script, like, I I always like the sets I was on at least like had like a bit of a culture surrounding that, like, 'cause not everyone's read the script on the set or like is given it, and it's like, oh man, like when you haven't read the script, you kind of like don't feel as important or you don't feel as involved in the film. So yeah,
yeah. I mean, he just gets
uh,
in and is thrown at the deep end, to just like, "Yeah, you're gonna do barrel rolls now." But
yeah,
the but yeah, like I really enjoyed this type of movie, and I thought it had enough in terms of the characters for me to be satisfied. I can understand wanting more though, as you said, especially when they are, as you said, had the highlight of the movie. Their conversations are just really fun to listen to, and they're both really great actors. So it makes sense to just want a little bit more of them. Um, yeah, I
I
understand your issues with the movie. I just don't agree.
I feel you. Yeah, I'm interested. I do that's a highlight as well that I love. I love that they say I think the drug dealer guy at the club asked that if they have like Oscars for stunt
And
work.
he just says
I have
nope, nope.
always said
it's
yeah, it's
it's
just
hilarious.
I
But that was one of the moments where I thought it was the most overtly self-referential because it was just
yes.
basically him telling the audience, "Nope, like you should pay attention to this." No, we do not.
It's a really funny like if there's any movie to just say it out loud, it is this movie, and it is
Oh, and
I've
there's
never
obviously
understood it. I'm
the
like,
end
guys,
credits music as well. It's like we don't need your gold, we don't need your Oscar nom, baby. We got real scars.
wait, that's the end credits music.
Yeah, did you not pay attention to the
I
music?
don't
There are two
know.
songs that play in
I
the
was
end.
watching I was watching the all the behind the scenes and focusing on that. I didn't listen.
Yeah, there are two songs that play. They're both about like love of the craft. The first one is just like uh yeah, I'm your unknown stuntman and I love you and everything like that. It's like more of a love song about being a
Yeah.
stuntman. And then the second one is genuinely
Well,
making fun of the fact that there are no Oscar noms for stunt work. It says, we got real scars from this labor of love. We don't need your Oscar nom, baby. Like that's the song.
interesting. I did find the first song funny, like for it to just be full out country. I was like, rest of the movie hasn't really been like this. And by the way, I love that they keep using the motif of Kisses I Was Made for Loving You.
Yeah.
Like they reincorporate that, and they also like it's actually in the musical score. I don't know how that worked, or if they had to make like a licensing deal, but like
Oh, they
it's like
obviously had to
it's almost like
license
the
it, yeah.
prominent song
Yeah.
of the
Yeah,
movie. Like
the main motif of the
it's the
movie
theme,
is,
basically. Yeah.
yeah, the main motif is the uh that song, which is great. And it's great. It fits so many different genres. There's like the operatic version when he
Yeah, when he
survives after
blows up.
jumping out the boat. There's
Yeah.
like the super the super like romantic version. It's great. Like there's so many different versions of the of the song and they're all great. Which is just like really good job of the composer adapting it.
I love when films do that just in general, like, they don't rely on the score and they have fun with the actual, like, soundtrack
Uh-huh.
choices that they use, like, the new TMNT movie uses Annie Up almost as, like, the theme of the movie, even though there is, like, an official theme, so
Hmm.
it's so funny. I'm like, I got the film on in the background on mute. I love like in damn near every scene, the producer's drinking Diet Coke, and it's so. I was mentioning how cartoony she is, but she plays like a really good producer
Yeah.
archetype. Like every person who's involved in like the part of the craft like feels like they have like the personality and the attitude of like whoever it is that they're playing.
Yeah. I feel like in if you're a movie lover or just involved in movies, you definitely like can identify everything this movie's going for, like that it's doing really well. You just look at it and like, yeah, I've seen this person, I've met this person in real life. It's great.
Yeah. Film about making films for people that make
For,
films,
yeah, exactly,
honestly.
yeah. Which is kind of why I think the film didn't do that well at the box office is that I think it's a
Yeah,
film about films for people that make films. It feels like a very niche audience. Though my
it's
parents
it's
didn't enjoy it, so I don't know.
it's interesting. Like I'm not. It's a weird film, like because I think Bullet Train, like it made a modest budget, but I think it at least like made turned a profit. I don't think this movie did. I think this is like
Oh yeah, I think this
with
movie
the money it
bombed.
made, it's viewed as a bomb, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. It did not deserve to bomb. There's a lot going on in this movie. Like even though I don't love it, I'm disappointed. Like same as Furiosa. There's a lot of movies that came out this year that have not done so well. I don't know though. I would think most people would enjoy this movie. It's got like blockbuster scale, like in a good way. It's
Yeah.
grounded. Like the stunts are all practical. It's got like good performances. Like I don't know why I didn't vibe with people, but I guess it just didn't.
Yeah, there's something weird going on with cinemas in general, where movies just aren't doing all that well, other than horror. Horror is always something that'll do well, but other
Well,
than
it's
that,
cheap.
that is part of it, yeah.
Yeah, we're headed down an interesting road in terms of the future of film.
Uh-huh.
We'll see. I don't and this is the other I remember looking it up, I'm like 120 million. I'm like, "God damn it, man, you couldn't bring it down to like 80, 90." It's just
Well, to be
I
fair, for this
I
movie, it's going for such a
well
grand scale, and it is a movie about
oh,
stunts, so it kind of harder to,
well, honestly, given the behind the scenes that they showed in the end credits, I'm blown away it wasn't more
Yeah.
expensive given like and especially with how they incorporate CGI into the action, like I it's impressive like how the movie looks, but I'm always, like, scared when a movie has a big budget, and I'm just like, "Man, you're playing with fire here in a modern context." It's like, I don't know why so many movies are expensive nowadays, but this is definitely a movie where the money's on screen. Like, you
Yeah,
you can tell this movie, like, used its budget, and it needed its budget to have as many action scenes as they have.
yeah, and I mean the movie has what it has going for it is the action scenes, basically just that, with a few scenes of like the actors being fun around each other, but the selling point is the action, so you kind of need to spend that money to make it look the way they want to, especially when they want to make it practical, because they could just do everything CGI. It's like the fucking jump as well,
Yeah.
like the 500-foot jump. Like they wanted to do
Yeah,
the
g well
CGI
well,
in
seriously, the
metal
3rd
storms.
act was the 3rd act was so insane, and I remember, like, seeing that stunt, and I was like, "That has to be practical." But I was like, "In any other movie, this would be CGI," but you
Yeah,
like, what they showed, I'm like, they built that full set of, like, the big old building. It's obviously, like, essentially just a ramp, but, like, all the sets, like, it looks like they filmed in front of the Sydney Opera House. I was like, "They had to CGI that in, right?" Like, they had stairs that were used, but I'm like, "No, it looks like it looks like all the scenes they pretty much didn't fake anything," and I'm
yeah,
like, "Great job." Like, there's a lot of CGI to, like, make things look kind of polished, especially in, like, the chase with the truck, like, they add a bunch of spark effects and stuff
yeah.
like that, like,
Yeah,
but
but even like him hanging on to the back of the truck with like that
yeah,
shovel
well
and everything, like that was
exactly.
practical.
I was sure. I was like, "There, yeah, this is fake." But, like, when I saw I was like, "Really?" He actually was sitting on, like, a little steel platform, like, holding on, like, I mean, he's cabled in and all that,
Of
but
course,
still,
yeah.
like
It's insane,
yeah.
yeah. Like genuinely really impressive. Which okay, like, we can bring it back to the topic of the conversation. Uh I the third act of Roadhouse, that shit looks so fake.
It really does, like, the
One
actual
one thing that
well
the 80s movie has going for it is that it's an
oof.
80s movie, so everything is practical. Like when they put shit on fire, it's actually on fire. The third act of the remake, it is so like so clearly fake. So much
Well
CGI used in ways that it didn't need to. Like you could have just kept the movie at a lower scale rather than making this bombastic fucking boat crashing into the bar and jumping out of the. Ah, it's so stupid.
well, that's the thing with all the action inside of that movie, they use CGI to, like, make like, they add all these, like, camera moving effects, and, like, it looks like they use, like, I don't know, like, morph edits. It's just
Yeah.
there is something really weird about how they incorporate CGI into the fights themselves and, like, how they look that just makes everything look kind of fake, which it's hilarious because you got Conor McGregor to play the villain. It's like, I surely they could have made, like, a fight look more grounded, but that entire fight in the bar, there's something about it that just looks fake, and
Oh, I hate the fight.
uh,
It's so there's so many issues I have with that with Roadhouse because like for one, I hate how it's like you know how I don't there's a term for this in movie making. I forgot what it is, but it's like when a character is
verisimilitude.
no, that's not what I was gonna say.
God
It's
damn it. I was gonna nail it.
yeah, but it's like when a character is like they're super awesome and they can beat anyone in a fight like oh super cool and then they come up against someone who's on their level and instead of that person being on their level you just make the character worse at fighting. That's what happens with Jake Gyllenhaal
Oh,
with Dalton
yeah.
in Roadhouse, and it's so annoying when Knox get shows up because it's just like we've had some really cool fights with Jake Gyllenhaal, but now he's just made to seem like he doesn't know how to fight anymore. He can't dodge punches that he's dodged before. It's just so like it's like something.
Yeah,
It's not nerfing per se, but it is kind of nerfing like the character's abilities. It's just really annoying, and they do that in the final fight as well. With Nox and that entire fight with the fucking throwing him at the piano and everything. Like it gets so to a level that I really don't enjoy. Um,
yeah, there's no real reason why he loses the fights or wins. Like, it's the whole, like, trying to, like, make it so his character arc matches that.
yeah.
It's like he doesn't have confidence, so he loses, and then he wins because like, loves the answers. Just
Yeah, he wins at the end like oh yeah, fucking uh Enter Sandman starts playing, and then he wins. Like, whoa! And they even make it to look like the Octagon, and be like, oh my god, they're actually, it's like before, and he does kill him. But we're like, okay, I thought he was gonna learn not to kill or something like that, but like there's nothing relating to him killing that friend of his in the fight, the UFC fight. It's just like something that happened to him that makes him famous, but other than that, there's no like real reason for it.
Yeah, and they don't explore it anywhere near as much as they could have. Like you don't you don't have like really any like flashbacks or anything like that establishing them being friends. So it
You're just like, oh, he was your friend. It's like, okay, I
connect.
guess if you say so.
Yeah, that line from God, he's like, I thought we had to be friends first. It's
Yeah.
like, oh God, I loved him in that movie. Let me tell you, like he was goofy and I couldn't take him seriously. But Conor McGregor, like he put himself completely out there and was like, you know what, dude, you earned your paycheck. Good
I don't know. I did not enjoy at all how
job.
cartoony he was. It was way too much for a movie that was, well, before he showed up, the
Well,
movie was
yeah,
very grounded, and then the movie just goes
I'll,
insane.
well, he definitely is in a different movie. I'll say that much. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to give a good performance. It's just like he's having fun at the very
He
least.
is
So,
having fun, I can say that much. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I don't, well, I'm glad I was able to tie it back to Roadhouse. But that's kind of what I thought was kind of funny, because you have like the super uh absurd end to that movie, and it's like it looks extremely fake, both the fight and the boat going at the bar, and Knox killing the villain. I forgot the name of the villain, but yeah. And in the Fall Guy, which is going for something way more absurd, it's all done practically, and it looks practical. Like that fucking 500-foot jump, it looks insanely good because they did actually do it. Like I love that shot of them just jumping up and then crashing down onto the ship. It's amazing because they actually did do it, and that's what's great about all the stunts in the Fall Guys, that they're all practical, and it keeps the same level of insanity throughout the entire movie, but in a way where it's like it is more grounded, I'd say, than Roadhouse, because it is using not only real uh stunts to make these scenes, but it is just within the realms of possibility in the universe they've established, rather than just pulling it out of nowhere in the third act and just being like, oh my god, we we're gonna fucking jump the boat onto the bar, and the guy's gonna survive being thrown at the bar from a boat onto the roof and then falling down the roof. Like, yeah, I'm sure he'll survive.
yeah, it feels like they use CGI as like a crutch, especially with the fight scenes. They like use
Yeah.
them to like because the stunt work probably isn't all that impressive or the action sequences themselves aren't that much. Like
Yeah.
they use CGI to like make things match better, but they don't rely on it. It's not like Marvel movie sets where you look and like everything is fucking blue screened and they don't like quiet scenes at like outdoor restaurants in Black Widow. They're like, you know what? Let's just put a blue screen over it. Who gives a fuck? It's like they film and like they care in this movie, and
Yeah.
they use the CGI well in a way that like makes things look a little bit more realistic, or at least like consistent. But they they don't fake it, and it's authentic. It's an authentic and sincere movie because I've been knocking this movie, but like it gets a lot right. It really gets a lot right, and it yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that. I got that out of you. Got you to admit that the movie's good. I tricked you. Uh,
Okay, it's not that bad. Okay, okay.
but yeah. I don't really know what else to say. I think we talked plenty about both movies. Uh, I
Yeah,
really enjoyed the Fall Guy. I, I'm afraid I still really love it despite your criticisms. I don't agree with them. I
I feel
genuinely
you.
like, I genuinely feel like rewatching it right now just because how much fun it is. I probably won't, but I might. Um, it's just it's a ton
Glad.
of fun.
Well, see, I'm curious what my brother like thinks. So I'm curious like what other like people that are like familiar with like filmmaking, like or have worked on like film sets, like student or otherwise, think of this movie because like
Uh-huh.
I feel like, and I mean, you said it yourself, like it seems like the vibe of people that have worked on film sets and like maybe they would connect with this movie a little bit more than like the average Joe. But like I'd be curious what other like aspiring filmmakers like think of this movie because it seems like it's made for them.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes it's a bit hard when you make movies for people who like movies in that way. Like it can be a very niche audience and it can be like
hilarious thing to say out loud. It's like hard to make
movies
movies for
for people
people
who
who
like
love
movies. Yeah.
movies. It's like,
Uh,
really?
huh.
Like, yeah, that is a little weird actually.
Yeah, but you do get, but you get it. It's like,
Yeah.
that type of audience. You can see a few movies that are made like that, like movies about making movies. Like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, part of it is like very much
Oh
that.
yeah.
And so sometimes it's a bit harder for it to gather like a larger audience when
Well,
it's so like
the,
specific to people who enjoy the movie making process as much as they enjoy movies themselves.
Well, this is what I was talking about with, like, the movie being self-referential, like, I feel like we're headed into an interesting era for movies, like, I mentioned Jordan Peele and, like, he made Nope, and, like, that movie isn't really about, like, filmmaking per se, but they still, like, consult a filmmaker to, like, get video, and, like, it's all about, like, getting the perfect shot, and they play,
Yeah,
like,
that
cowboy music, like,
absurd
they're
fucking yeah.
movies are a lot more self-referential nowadays, even if they're not like, referencing like sequels or stuff like that. It's almost like they want to call attention to like, hey, we're making a movie and like we love movies. We love how movies are made. And like I think people like theorize that that's because like there's more transparency with how movies are made. Like they're always releasing behind the scenes and stuff like that. And there's a little bit more clarity with exactly how a movie's made and like there's less like quote unquote movie magic nowadays because like you can just see everything and again like when you look into a Marvel movie and just see that everything's blue screen it's like oh like do they care it's like hard to say but it's like it's interesting that's almost a new genre of movies
Yeah.
is like movies about movies it's
Yeah,
like
like the passion for making movies is shining through in the movies
yeah
themselves. Like it's always being highlighted. It's interesting. I don't know.
yeah
It
I
is interesting. Like if you, I was thinking like Dan Harmon probably started that with Abed in Community 2009 from the get-go. Like it was a show about well, it wasn't we're not gonna say Community is a show about TV shows, but it kind of is. And Abed is just that kind of character, like has seen every single TV show ever and every movie ever, and he just can reference everything, and it kind of is interesting because that is kind of where this entire thing came from. I feel like well, I actually feel like Dan Harmon is probably one of the biggest like
I
filmmaking like
Well, he honestly
influences.
is. Especially when you appreciate, like, just how many of, like, the filmmakers from Community, like,
Community and
went
Rick
on
and
to work
Morty.
with the MCU,
Yeah,
and yeah, and Rick and Morty, you're like, "Damn," like, some of the most popular elements of, like, pop culture came from Dan Harmon
yeah,
indirectly. You're like, "Damn." It's it's funny for his fingerprints of all people to be over, like, popular Hollywood,
yeah.
but
Especially
yeah.
when he doesn't like Marvel. But yeah, I feel like that started from there, and it just kind of been like I think you should let the filmmakers like appreciate their own jobs because sometimes it's like, especially when you're not an actor, people don't really value your job that much in terms of filmmaking. Because actors obviously you see them acting, but the other roles that you can have in the cast and crew of movies is gonna be like much less of like a famous
Well
role, like oh everyone's gonna know about what you did. Your name's probably gonna be in the credits, but it's very hard for it to be like something that people call attention to. And it's nice that these different aspects of filmmaking are being more called attention to by the filmmakers themselves. I kind of appreciate that. Like, a movie made by a stunt coordinator who became the director about stunts. Like, I enjoyed this type of.
Yeah.
It is
Well,
niche, but in
honestly,
in a good way.
yeah, the guy must feel on top of the world, and I'm sure this was a huge passion project because it's exactly that. Like I mean, that's literally how they open the movie. They open with like voiceover narration of like talking about stunt works and how like they're not seen, and they use a
Yeah,
lot of like really impressive stunts from popular movies. So it's yeah, I David Leitch definitely made the movie that he wanted to make, and it's important that there's a movie that is like so like directly about the process of making a movie and specifically with stunt work.
yeah.
So it's yeah, I'm
Yeah,
glad
there are
we're
always
getting
these
movies like this
different.
nowadays.
Yeah, there's always these different aspects of filmmaking that are explored when it's movies about making movies. Stunt work is one that needed to be highlighted at some point, considering just how like underappreciated it is. And I do
Especially with
love.
how action-oriented movies are nowadays, they're
Yeah,
more action-oriented than ever, and it's like, yeah, let's get some acknowledgement for stunt work and finally an Oscar category, God
yeah.
forbid, because yeah,
It's insane that
they
there's
need more
no Oscar
appreciation.
category for stunt work, and I
I've
genuinely don't get it.
it is unreal, man, like, seriously, there's, like people have said, like, soundtrack or stuff like that, or there's a couple of specific categories that people have thrown out, but that's the one that just doesn't add up. Damn near every movie has stunt work to an effect. Like, even just a movie like a scene where someone falls down or gets like punched, like there's probably a person behind that. And it's like
Yeah, I was
the
thinking about
idea that like
Joker.
they're
There's like him falling, him getting hit by a
yeah,
taxi. Like that's a stunt.
yeah, that's like there's so many movies that like they without the stunt team, they wouldn't have had a film. And it's just they never have had an acknowledgement from the
Yeah.
Academy. It's like, man,
I mean,
it's a shame.
Dune was nominated for a bunch of categories. Like that movie, the stunt work was really, really important. Like there's so much action in that movie. Like especially, talking about Dune Part One, like that third act. If it weren't for stunts, that entire like third act wouldn't have been the same. There's a bunch of people fighting, and going through like this very big war, like, and the movie wouldn't be the
Yeah.
same. And
Well,
it
and
was like the biggest movie of 2021, and it's the same for Dune 2 or fucking Furiosa. Like,
yeah, so many movies are relying on stunt work nowadays, and it's important for it to get acknowledged.
yeah. Didn't what Deadpool Wolverine that does that scene of Deadpool dancing, I've heard, and it's not even Ryan Reynolds in the suit, it's the stunt man, the double
Oh,
body
really?
double. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm guessing the body doubles get really into it because I mean, I don't know how much Ryan Reynolds does his own stunt work in those movies, but
I don't
yeah,
think
that
he does a lot with the suit at all. I think it's kind of like Mando, with the
uh,
Pedro Pascal. He only
I don't.
does the
I
few
swear,
scenes where they don't have the mask on.
I always remember being disappointed when I heard that. It's just like, yeah, like he just doesn't really do most of his own like stuff, and it's just a body double. It's like, wow, that sucks. I'm like, so the
Usually
main
that
character
happens
isn't
so
even.
much with superhero stuff, where if they have like a suit, especially a mask, it's gonna be the body double
Well,
that does
well,
everything.
that's why every suit is nanotech now. It makes it easier to make it so that you can just whoop. Now they're the actor, and then whoop. Now, now it's the stunt performer or
Uh,
just all CGI, and it's like, yeah, it. This is what I'm talking about with inauthenticity. Just like is it a semblance that like stuff isn't real and like the actors and like the filmmakers aren't that invested?
yeah. Which I'm glad there's still movies out there that do care. Uh, Fall Guy
Yes,
cares,
indeed.
and a few other movies care. Um, Few and far between, but it's always nice when that happens. And,
Yep.
yeah, I think that's all for today. Unless you have anything
I
else to say.
think we've I think we've rounded it off pretty well. A little more scattershot than
Yeah,
our
but
other
that was
two,
kind of
but yeah.
expected. It was a bit of
Yeah, yeah.
a wild episode idea. I was kind of testing the waters to see if I could do like an episode comparing two things, especially when they're kind of not that similar. I was just testing
Yeah,
if we could do
I
it.
was wondering when I was watching the movie, I'm like, "Is this gonna be kind of like it?" Where I'm like, "Oh, there's similar." I'm like, no." Like,
No,
the
no, no.
3rd act was the one thing where I'm like, I think maybe she'll talk about this in terms of, like, how bonkers everything gets and, like, how the stakes are insane, but yeah, like,
Yeah,
different movies, but interesting talking points.
yeah, and yeah, I feel like we've covered both. Well, all three of them, because they're two roadhouses, fairly well. And yeah, now Evan, it's your turn to recommend something for next week.
Yes, it is. I am going with Groundhog Day. That has been my
Oh, okay.
go-to favorite film that I say. Like it's the classic question. I don't necessarily have an answer, but it's my go-to. You have not seen it, and I would love to talk about it in detail because I I have a lot to talk about. I'd be curious what you think. Honestly, it might not be your vibe. I've met people that don't love Groundhog Day.
Oh, I
It's like
think
I
I'm
bet I
gonna enjoy it. It seems
yeah.
like my vibe from what I've heard. It's just I never got around to watching it. It's
How
the same for like
How
many
much do you know
classic
about
movies.
it? Like, I mean,
I
pretty
mean,
much everyone knows the premise,
yeah, I
but,
know the
like
premise because well, that's literally become like a sci-fi word now,
yeah,
Groundhog Day, to
it's funny the
mean repeating the same thing.
subgenre that people have tried to make, like, I
Yeah,
mean, Edge of Tomorrow and stuff like that. That's probably my favorite example of that, but not many people have really pulled it off.
yeah. I think the Groundhog Day concept is be uh it could be done really well, but there's some people who don't really know how to utilize it well. I mean, Doctor Who series 13, 12 did it as well, and it was not very good. So that kind of stuff happens. Um, I know that the guy tries to kill himself. Uh, and that's kind of it. I genuinely don't know much else. He has to kill himself. It's during
Oh,
the Groundhog Day, and he keeps repeating the same day, and that's it.
wow. Very interested to see what you think, so
All right. Well, finally, I'm going to watch one of the classic movies that I haven't seen yet. So very good. Um, with that, I think that's all for today, folks. We'll catch you all next week with Groundhog Day. Yeah.
catch you next week. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah. See ya.
See ya.